Hello, my name's Jack and I thought it'd be really jolly if we did some painting together today. And what I'd love to do some painting with is some artificial snow. So just a couple of little bits and bobs I've been working on. Now the best snow on the market is Valhalla Blizzard by Games Workshop, because you open the pot and inside is, well, snow. It's about £5 a pot though, so it's a bit expensive, but yeah, so it's always nice to have the option there to make your own. Now, this is my recipe that I've managed to perfect is a strong word, but I managed to get through trial and error, mainly error. But it's 1/3 PVA wood glue, 1/3 sand, and another third white acrylic paint. And as you can see, it gives a pretty good snowy base. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think that looks quite nice. You can see there's a bit of Blood for the Blood God special effects paint on there as well, which has turned up fairly decently. Because there's no point having snow unless you're going to have blood dramatically across it. Compare and contrast though with Valhalla Blizzard, which looks absolutely wonderful. You can see the Blood for the Blood God there. It actually looks like it's crystallized and frozen a little bit, which looks amazing. But that being said, it is a £5 a pot, and let's say you might have hundreds of bases that you want to do, or a big special project that you need a lot of snow for, or you might just want to play around with a theme and you don't want to commit to buying a full pot of something yet. So anyway, it's nice to have fun with it. So without further ado, I should probably find a nice big project to show you. I have got a double-sided game board, which is 22 inches by 30 inches, which is the size decreed by the Dark Gods that one needs for a thrilling game of skirmish combat in Warcry. So, on this one hand, I've got a board here which is made of some pleather, which is a nice cheap, £7 a metre. So really cheap and cheerful stuff, which I've just glued on here. Don't know if you can see, there's a rather nice river of boiling blood here coming from the middle, but we'll do that in another video. On the other side, like everyone, I rushed out and bought as many copies of the Mortal Realms thing as I could. £1.99 for 13 models, some dice, a ruler, and a load of these game boards here, which I've glued on. So the idea behind this is going to be some sort of ancient temple on some kind of snowy plateau. So without any further ado, let's give that a go and let's get painting, because I think that could be quite good fun. So now, to do this recipe, you're going to need a couple of bits and bobs. So the first bits and bob that you're going to need is a crap old brush. Now, this is my crap old brush. It's been sitting in the shed for ages. I think it was a set that I got from Poundland originally. So if it gets ruined, I'm not going to be devastated. The other thing you'll need is a lolly stick. Yeah, so this is a lolly stick, which I got from a lolly. Again, never throw away lolly sticks. And finally, you're going to need an old takeaway container from an old takeaway. Now, discussing materials. So, the sand that I've got here is just play sand, which I stole from a child's sand pit, which I have no guilt about doing whatsoever. So the reason why I use play sand is because it's very, very fine. So it looks like, the flakes of snow. If you use a coarser sand, like builder's sand, then it's going to have lots of little pebbles mixed into it and other junk you don't need. So, splurge the £4 and get a big bag from Tesco. Now, the white paint, I've just got a tube of any old damn white paint will do. It doesn't matter, as long as it's water-based, it will be fine. Now, this goes slightly against my policy of always using the cheapest possible things, but when you're doing this, use a good quality wood glue. So I've got Gorilla Glue, which is the only glue which is made by, for, and from gorillas, so you know that it's really good quality. Now, you're going to want to mix this up in a ratio of 1/3 to 1/3. Squeeze that in there. There you go. Right, so I've got a kind of a generous amount of wood glue in there, and then about the same amount of sand again. You sprinkle that in there. And and let's get as much of this damn paint out of the tube as we can. I have to. Ooh, there we go. Right, now the consistency that you're looking when you're stirring this up, and you can always add in more of whatever ingredients if you need to, is you want to get it so it's a bit like a toothpaste. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so stirring that in. You want to make sure, you know when you're making Rice Krispie cakes, and you want to make sure that all the Rice Krispies are covered in chocolate? Well, that's what you're looking for here. Okay, so make sure that you can't see any brown bits left over from the sand. There we go. And what occurs to me as well, the other thing I did try, it was polyfiller, but that got very flaky. It had a nice colour to it, but it did get very, very flaky, so it's not something that I'm keen to repeat as an experiment. So hopefully you can see that there. So you've ended up with quite a nice, like a nice paste. So it's fairly viscous, like an incredibly thick milkshake. That's what you want to be going for, because that gives the texture of, well, snow, which is what we're after. So let's get all this stuff and nonsense out of the way. Out of the way, terribly painted models. Out of the way, wood glue. And let's get painting. So, now, I've got a piece of cardboard on the table because, I value my life. And this is a very nice table. So, spread that on there, like that. Now, the nice thing about this is that it's very, very forgiving. So if you make any mistakes, don't worry, that's just where some snow has gone. So so that we don't get these stark corners here, I'm blending it in like that. And I'm also stroking it from one direction, because that's the direction that the snow has fallen. And can you see where this little bits of the paper have kind of peeled away there? Not a problem. That's just going to get covered in more snow. Aha! Now, because this is a double-sided game board, I don't want to put it on too thick. If it's put on too thick, well, for two reasons. First of all, when it's on the other side, when it's on the side of the brown stuff, which is blasted wastes or whatever you fancy, then it's going to make it really hard to balance, and it's going to be wobbling all over the place. All right, so the snow's blowing from this direction. I'm going to try to keep the vast majority of my strokes this way. And the second reason why I'm trying to keep it not too bumpy is because if you're using scenery with a flat bottom and the stuff that you're trying to put it on top of is all wobbly, then your scenery is going to wobble. Something else to bear in mind as well when you're doing artificial snow is have a think for 5 seconds about what surface you're applying it to. If you apply it to, say, this stuff here, which is just white foam board, which I can't remember where I picked this up from, but from my numerous tip diving exhibitions. It is a lot more forgiving. If you miss a couple little bits, then you know what, no one's going to spot it. But if I was trying to do this on, say, black, then people are going to spot it. Now, again, make sure that you're covering all of the edges of this bit in the middle here. If you didn't rush out and immediately panic buy dozens of copies of the Mortal Realms Issue 1 magazine, that's not a problem. You've got options. Print off a couple of pages from the internet. Photocopy some bits at work when the boss isn't looking. You've got options. There's plenty of textures out there, which a quick Google search will give you for dungeon tiles or anything like that. Or if you really, really want, you can just have an entire board with snow. But I've had a kind of an image in my head of a temple plateau right at the top of a mountain that people are visiting to rob for its arcane power and to fight over. The other thing as well, that's another trick, if you've got bits of paper that have gotten torn, is just cover it with blood for the blood god. It's a really nice, versatile way of doing that. Right, so you've got the idea, so I'm not going to bore you to tears by having me do painting around the entire edges. I'm going to finish this off, and then we'll come back when it's dried. But before I let you go, something else I want to show you is this. So this is a little ramekin pot, which I keep a mixture of different mosses, tiny little bits of static grass, and very, 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 very fine bits of stone. So what I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to sprinkle a couple of bits in there, maybe get a couple of strands of moss. Even in terribly Arctic areas, there's always a couple of plants which are just kind of clinging on for dear life in this blasted, chaotic hellscape that we find ourselves in. So there you go. So I'll press a couple of things in there, and then I can show you how it works. There we go. So you can see how that's turning out so far. I'm going to wait for this to dry, and I'll be back in a tickaroo. Ta-da! It's dry. Oh, sorry, let me try that again. Ta-da! It's dry. Right, so what we have here is, in my view, quite a nice little game board. The snow has dried on very solidly, so it will withstand the vigours of play and people's models being pushed all around it. And overall, this looks, pretty snowy. You can see here I've rubbed some static flock just into the snow here, just to make it look like it's grass poking its way out of the edge. Just trying to break its way out of this cold, barren, chaotic soil, and no doubt to be eaten by some sort of chaotic goat or something like that. Such is the tragic circle of life. It's nice and kind of asymmetrical here, so do feel free to have a play with it. Find something that works for you. Speaking of you, please do feel absolutely free to like, favourite, share, subscribe, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. You can do what you like. But please do join me next time when we're going to be looking at a boiling river of blood. Oh, that does look spooky, doesn't it? So we're going to be looking at techniques on how we can do a frothing, raging river of blood, which you can